Okay, part 2 of our test review for Unit 2. Okay, Great Awakening. All right, so you want to know a lot about the Great Awakening. So it is a religious revival. The American colonists kind of getting lax in their religion. Some churches were losing church members, and we're going to get this big revival. Now, something you want to know, not sure how much I stressed it in class, is that the Great Awakening starts in Europe. So the source is in Europe, and it's going to carry across the Atlantic. So it's part of this transatlantic exchange, right? So the Great Awakening comes across the Atlantic from Europe to the colonies. Okay, so in the colonies, kind of make it their own, right? But it does start in Europe, right? And the English and the colonists are gung-ho on the Great Awakening. Okay, so it's a religious revival, right? And you've got these traveling priests that are going to come around and start preaching kind of the new attitudes, right? And this is called evangelism. So evangelism is where you go out and you do a lot of preaching and you're trying to get new members and convert people and spread your new religion or your new ideas. So that's evangelizing. When people come and knock on your door and say, can I tell you about my religion or this and that? That's evangelizing, right? Going out and trying to spread that new word. And so that's something to keep in mind with the Great Awakening, that it's evangelical. Okay, so one of our big Great Awakening ministers is George Whitefield. And remember, he's the more charismatic one. He's going to do the traveling revivals. He'll go from town to town and have, a 3-day revival, and everyone will get, super excited about it and have a good time and kind of get back to their religion. Now, some of the new religions that we get will be the Baptist religion and the Methodist. Remember, the Baptists are going to have that new idea that, all people are equal, even Native Americans, even African Americans. And so that'll cause a little bit of conflict with slave owners and others trying to keep those groups down. Okay, so that's Whitefield. And so remember, he's an evangelist. Okay, sinners in the hands of an angry God. Okay, this sermon was written by Jonathan Edwards, and he's really the first one to kind of start the Great Awakening, but Whitefield will be more popular. So perhaps you might see a quote from this on your test. It'll probably be Jonathan Edwards, telling you, you need to repent your sins, right? Maybe you're caught up on material possessions, right? And this is going to keep you from going to heaven, right? And it sounds more of a lecture. It's not super it's inspiring. It's a little scary. But again, if you see a quote like this, it's definitely going to be from the Great Awakening. So if it's about sinning, Great Awakening, that should tip you off right there. Okay, so effects of the Great Awakening are really important. So not only is it a religious revival, but the colonists come together. They kind of unite. All classes get in on the Great Awakening, whether it's upper class, middle class, lower class, and even slaves, even Native Americans are going to partake in the Great Awakening. So it is a unifying force. Now, the other thing the Great Awakening does is it keeps with our tradition of resisting Great Britain and defying them, right? If we can defy the king's religion, which is Anglican, and these Great Awakening preachers were not Anglican, right? They're definitely Protestant. Some will kind of continue and change the Puritan religion, but Baptist, Methodist, those are different. Those are entirely new religions. And so, again, we're defying the king's religion. When the religion doesn't work for us, it doesn't satisfy the churchgoers' emotional needs, they create new religions. And so, in effect, this is helping us move towards that American Revolution where we have that idea that, yeah, we can defy the king's laws, right? We can defy his religion. We can defy the Navigation Acts and smuggle. We've got our own autonomy, right? Our own democracy, and we can make things the way we want. So keep that in mind. Okay, the Enlightenment. So what to know about the Enlightenment? Remember, the Enlightenment isn't a religious movement. The Great Awakening is, but the Enlightenment is more of an intellectual. It's philosophers, it's scientists with their reason and logic. Now, the Enlightenment does influence us with that colonial resistance, right? It kind of gives us those ideas of, equality, fairness, life, liberty, pursuit of property, or happiness. And so when we start to resist the British, that's coming from the Enlightenment ideas. Even with the French and Indian War and the Albany Plan of Union, a lot of that is coming from Enlightenment ideas where, Ben Franklin says, hey, let's kind of do our own governance and raise our own militia so that Britain doesn't have to. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, Ben Franklin. What to know about him? He's kind of our Enlightenment man or Renaissance man. Living that American dream as a young boy, or a teenage, about y'all's age, he walked from Boston to Philadelphia, started his own printing press. He had been an apprentice at a print shop, and he'll start his own newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, and just this kind of lifelong learner, right? He invented bifocals, and I mean, who puts a key on a kite and flies it out in a lightning storm to see if you can, see what happens? Invents all kinds of stuff, and then of course, Poor Richard's Almanac. So a lot of practical uses. So just kind of that really cool guy. Okay, and we'll see him again, of course, in the French and Indian War and then in our American Revolution. Okay, so that takes us to the French and Indian War. Okay, so what to know about the French and Indian War is, also called the 7 Years' War, and it has global causes. This is a European conflict that spreads to the Americas. So again, a European conflict that spreads to the Americas. Now, I know we have that sparks it off, where George Washington attacks that French fort, Fort Duquesne, and then he builds his little Fort Necessity to protect himself from the French, and then that whole detachment of soldiers from Fort Duquesne will come and attack him and defeat him, and that's the spark. But you want to know, it is kind of a war with the British and the French that spills over to the Americas. Okay, so that's the French and Indian War. We've got the spark, right, with the Battle of Fort Necessity. And then just to know, our strategy will be to take Canada. And so once we do that, William Pitt comes in and says, no, take those big cities in Canada. We'll be successful. Okay, one of the big things with the French and Indian War is the Albany Plan of Union, or the Albany Congress. And so again, Ben Franklin will call this. And the point of the Albany Congress was to get delegates from each colony to come together, right? We've got to unite, because the colonies are pretty much doing their own thing and not working together. And Franklin says, look, if we can raise our own official army, then we can have a common defense against the French. And you know what? Maybe the British don't need to come in and bring all their troops and fight for us. So he's trying to preserve some autonomy and some, independence from Britain by doing this. Okay, so his proposal was have the central government over the colonies, so it would be elected colonials in this government, and they would raise the militia, but they would also tax the colonies to pay for it, and also set some policy like with the Native Americans. Well, the colonies don't go for it because they don't want this other set of government over them, and they don't want to give up the right to do their own taxes. They're worried that they'll be overtaxed by this little colonial government. Okay, so the Albany Plan fails. Oh, the other reason we have the Albany Plan is to get the help of the Iroquois. We want to make an alliance with them because the French have a whole lot of Native American allies. Well, the Iroquois back down. They've learned their lesson on this. And so one effect on the Native Americans is they get brought into these imperial wars, right? France will bring them into their conflicts. Great Britain will bring them into their conflicts. Even the Dutch, when they had control of New York, would get the Native Americans on their side. And so unfortunately, your Native Americans tend to be pawns in a lot of European wars and entanglements. Okay, all right, so French and Indian War ends. We get the Treaty of Paris 1763, and France is no longer has any land in North America, a couple islands in the Caribbean, but that's it. And so Britain has all of Canada, they've got the Ohio River Valley, and then, of course, the American colonies. Oh, and they get Florida from Spain. And then Spain will have that big Louisiana Purchase area in, Texas and Mexico. Okay, so one of the big effects of the French and Indian War is going to be Pontiac's rebellion. So after the war, Pontiac decides, hey, let's take some land back. The British troops are gone, the French troops are gone, those American colonists are probably, tired of fighting. So let's see if we can get some land. Okay, well, Pontiac's unsuccessful. The Americans do fight. Whatever British troops are there will go in and invade as well. Okay, and so our Native Americans lose these battles. Now, the big effect of this is that the British will draw the Proclamation Line of 1763. And this line says you cannot move west of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, well, this is going to cause a lot of problems because you've got all these settlers who need to move west, right? The immigrants keep pouring in, they're out of land, and there aren't a whole lot of jobs in the cities, right? They need the land to farm, and so they want to move west of the line. And then think about it. They just fought to get the Ohio River Valley from the French. So why can't they move there? Well, the British are telling them, hang on, we need to make a treaty with the Native Americans. Maybe we need to buy the land from them. Maybe, we need to divide up some territory. Like, give us a second to work with them. But the colonists, I mean, by now they're too upset, right? They feel very let down, very kind of slapped in the face for fighting this long war, and they can't even use that land. Okay, so the Proclamation of 1763 also shows us those tensions from the colonial settlement, right? As the colonists settle out west and they need more land, it creates conflicts with the Native Americans, and then also between those lower class people trying to get the free land and then the upper class government who's, trying to, stop them or trying to make treaties or trying to kind of have some control over that. Okay, well, I think that's the gist of the test. There are some tricky questions, so just, let me know. But if you study all this, you should be good. All right, good luck on your test.